Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Command Point for our next episode of Kill Team Metawatch. I'm Ryan, and today I'm joined by my co-host Shane and our honorary analyst Sean. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, thanks.
I am doing pretty well. I'm excited to do another episode of this series here.
All right, so what we've got on the table today is the data from the Worldwide Open, and this time it's for the Chaos factions. Shane, where do you want to start?
Well, for the last episode for Imperium, we start from the top. So I say we turn it upside down and we start from the bottom and we'll work our way up because I think there's a lot to say for each of these factions. Um, whereas with Imperium, most of the players were Imperial Guard and Space Marines. Here we've got a pretty even spread of what was played. So we'll start at the bottom with Thousand Suns, who were kind of the big scary team before this tournament because of the aspiring sorcerer buff. They ended up having a win loss of 8 wins, 13 losses, so 38% win rate. They're the only chaos team below 50 here, for what it's worth. Um, what do you guys think?
I was pretty surprised by this. Like, it's just the two Cybolds coming out like every turn just seems like that can get you through a lot of sticky situations, you know?
Yeah, Cybolt's Cybolt's amazing, but I think it's easy to look at a Cybolt and think that you should be playing a ranged game, and kind of stay away. But Cybolts alone aren't going to win you a game, especially when you're not getting points for kills. Um, at 100 points, at taking two sorcerers, you're not getting as many bodies on the table as you might want to be contesting and holding objectives. And then it's like one guaranteed injury roll for your Cybolt, but it's just that it's a 50-50 shot on the injury roll. And then what? They definitely have the capability to get into close combat and do some work, but if you aren't experienced with it, it would be interesting to talk to these players to see what they learned about the faction, what their experience was beforehand. But to just jump in and say, "Oh, I can stand across the table and do Cybolts," like that's not gonna be enough. You need to get up and engage two models, Cybolt one of them, and then swing at the other one.
Yeah, Thousand Suns, the aspiring sorcerers, they have great close combat capabilities. You know, they can take the hand flamer, which is like a pistol weapon, so that's awesome. And then they also have that staff. They're good close combat models, and you know
Yeah,
you can bubble wrap them with your Zangors and stuff and move them up the board. But Shane, I remember in the game that I did commentary for the Thousand Suns game, we saw that Thousand Suns player just kind of like sit back in his own objective with his aspiring sorcerers, and they didn't really do anything but whip out Cybolt. So I feel like that was kind of a shortcoming from a lot of play for the Thousand Suns players, and I think that might help explain the story here.
Yeah, I mean, Thousand Suns are weird. With those sorcerers, you need to be really careful with them. You can't be too aggressive, but you can't be too passive either, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a
I think,
difficult balance.
yeah, if you do either one a little too much, then I think it can seriously backfire. I mean, it's weird because having two sorcerers, two aspiring sorcerers rather, um, this lets you still get a lot of bodies while having two Cybolts. And this was specifically a WWO thing, and it seems pretty obvious that Games Workshop does not want you to be able to have two Cybolts and a lot of bodies. Like, no faction can do that. Um,
Who
the
asked
o-
for this? Who asked for that change? Honestly,
um, yeah, like Grey Knights, really elite team. Thousand Suns can do it, but they need to have like a 40-point sorcerer, so they're really dropping bodies to do that. Demons only have one. Servants of the Abyss only have one. So that seems to be the situation unless you're playing in Commanders. Um, they definitely, I think they have the tools to be good. I wouldn't say that like 38% win rate is like where they belong because I mean we had a guy in the top 8, right? So there's definitely something to be said for it. Um, any other thoughts on Thousand Suns before I move up?
yeah. I mean, if you're going against somebody who's good at target priority, that they can be in big trouble. Um,
yeah.
because the Zangors, like they're definitely good for their price, but yeah, you're making choices because you have all these shiny things. They have between the Cybolts, but then they also have was it Warp Flamers that are they've really solid flamers. But then you're
The
left with like
Soul Reaper cannon as well.
or yeah. So it's like but between your sorcerers and gunners now you have like 3 Zangors. So you're dumping a lot of points into those couple pretty beefy models, and take 1 or 2 out, and now it's like you're really kind of playing the rest of the game with your hands tied behind your back.
Yeah, definitely. Let's take a look now at Chaos Demons. I think we only had a couple demon players here, but they finished with a win rate of 50% on the nose, so 4-4. One of the demon players made top 8, so clearly something was happening that was working here. Ryan, we talked about demons in our tier list for WWO, and we were not that high on them. It still perplexes me because I didn't get to watch any of the players' games who made top 8. Um, it seems to me that you can so easily get kind of trapped with that faction where eventually in some game in a tournament you're going to hit the break test, right? Especially at 100 points where I mean, this player, I do know one thing. He was not taking the most bodies possible. He was taking 4 pink horrors, I think, 3 or 4 at least, and he would only have like 10 or 11 bodies. So I mean, you're breaking 1/6 guys are dead or flesh wounded, and demons die really easily. So it is interesting. I mean, I would have thought that Thousand Sons were a lot stronger than demons in the format.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The thing that Chaos Demon had going for them as opposed to Thousand Sons is just the pink horrors. Especially on those arena maps to start off the tournament. You kill a pink horror, it's like cool. Now you're just like trapped in a hallway with blue horrors and now brimstones, and you don't move, and they just go all around the map, and they just score on the primary, score their engage in all fronts, dominations, whatever, and then they just win by just standing around and not really doing anything, which is incredibly frustrating. Um, yeah, I just hate Garrison Vault is what it comes down to. I think that's the name of it. Yeah, Thousand Suns with the 2 Cybolts definitely had an edge over Chaos Demons. The Zangors are good for Thousand Suns. And then yeah, like we were like prepping, right? Like you were thinking about. I don't think you were thinking about doing Chaos Demons for this, but like other people were, and you were talking to me about it, and they're like, "Yeah, this is a bad idea because they break turn 2. They can break turn 2 very easily." So I don't know. Good for them getting 50-50 and beating our expectations. I don't remember what we ranked them at on the tier list, but I don't think it was very high.
Yeah, they were the lowest. I think we had them at like C or something. They were the lowest faction that made top 8 from
Well,
our
they
tier
got a
list.
50% mid win
Yeah,
rate. I guess we'll give them the passing grade is accurate.
I mean, at a team like this where they don't have elite options and their leadership is capped at 7, when you can only at 100 points you can only take so many bodies. Like I think once you hit like 14 bodies for a lot of hordes is when you start to feel a little bit safe. Like you can actually overwhelm before the break test, or maybe even prevent the break test. But when it's 12 max, or especially like 10 or 11, like it's gonna happen. Jumping up to the next one, there are Heretic Astartes, and I honestly didn't get to see a single game of Heretic Astartes during this tournament.
Me neither.
I know there was a
Yeah.
couple people playing them, but I did not. I don't know exactly how they were running it. Um, I can imagine though it probably involved Corn Berserkers, and they probably struggled on the open board.
Oh yeah.
Without having seen their games, I would guess that was a pretty big story of this 56% win rate, which is 5 wins, 4 losses. So, all things considered, it was a decent showing.
Yeah, I should have gone all in too, and gone into some more numbers, because when we see one of those players was 0-2 and the other player was 5-2, that's a very different story than like having a 2-2 and a 3-2, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
so so that sounds like somebody with a bad run or first time out, and then somebody else who actually understood the faction and did pretty well, because 5-2 is really good.
Yeah, the 5-2 player, they made it into the third bracket. They took Renegade Heretic Astartes, and then the 0-2 player took Iron Warriors and World Eaters. An even split. World Eaters, that's interesting. You don't really get a lot out of that sub faction when you have Corn Berserkers already, you know. So
Yeah, World Eaters are definitely on the weaker end. You really want those reroll charges. You already have so many attacks with the Berserkers.
yeah,
I mean, I kind of talked a little bit before this tournament that I thought the perfect thing to do is go half Iron Warriors, half Renegade chapters,
yeah,
where like you can take the Iron Warriors for the open board and just have the Terminator Gunner and a couple of the Marine Gunners, and then just fill out with cultists and just try and threaten the board as much as possible. And then for the arena, obviously, you can run those Berserkers in, cause as much trouble as you can. It doesn't look like anybody did that though. Granted, the guy that went 5-2, I mean, Renegade chapters are strong. We've seen them do well before, and he had a really good run in the tourney. So I think he might have gone 3-1 in the main Swiss. I don't have that many. I guess I don't have that much experience with Heretic Stories at 100 points. I mean, we've seen them do really well at 125. I think the furthest back that I'm aware of for Heretic Astartes at 100 points was Will Blood at Nova in
right.
2019, and I think he was fourth place. And then at the first Nova, Matt Hurl took like the cultists, man, like the 19 cultists and the plasma gun guy. So that's a build that you can do. Nobody did that here. Um, and going back actually through our like we've looked at Imperium and now we're looking at Chaos. We haven't looked yet at a faction that had like a 20-man horde, which is like what is the traditional dominant type of thing on this type of format, right? I mean, it's definitely interesting. I don't know why that's been. It's not that it's been figured out, but it's not as common as it used to be. But there was a time when the 20-man lists, like the 20-man Tyranid list, the 20-man Chaos Space Marine list with all the cultists, that was like the most successful thing.
Yeah, I think we've hit a point too where like I don't know. I think when those kind of lists started to become popular, there's kind of put a bad taste in people's mouths
Mhm.
that it's like, yeah, we're not actually here to kill things and kill team. We're just want to like flood bodies, and we know we're not going to kill things, and we're just accepting that, and we're just going to stand on points. And I think to some point it's become a gentleman's game, and nobody wants to play like that. Like I don't know. I like playing NIDS, but I'm not gonna bring 19 gaunts and a warrior because I don't want to just like push gaunts around and not do anything else. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know. I don't see that being fun to play with. To have to commit to a whole event of just that, pushing your models around and hoping they don't die enough to break you. But that and there's no counterplay in terms of using your roster, right? You fill your whole roster with a horde, and now you can't actually, well, I guess you don't need to tailor your lists for different matchups, but like you can't. You don't have the option, and I don't know. There's something that feels really weird about putting your roster out to your opponent and them knowing exactly what models you're gonna bring.
Yeah,
That feels scary. Like that. Oh, they're gonna be able to counter me, and I can't do anything about it. So I don't know. It definitely like ties your hands in a lot of ways, and I could see why that's just not appealing to any people after like we've all seen it.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think there's also something to be said for? I don't think that type of team has really done well ever since Elites came out. Do you think maybe teams got the tools to deal with hordes like that after Elites?
I would say so. I mean, look at Blood Angels, right? They
Yeah.
eat hordes. They
Yeah.
eat those toughness 3 lists. Um, Granted, that wasn't here. It's not really that common to see it, but it's there, man. It's so dangerous.
Yeah, Corn
And then
Berserkers
like,
too weren't a thing before Elites, and those eat hordes.
yeah, like you didn't have these basically cost-effective models that could put out a tremendous amount of, at the very least, strength 4 attacks.
For sure. And now, speaking of the big horde teams that have dominated in the past, the most successful team at WWO in the Chaos umbrella so to speak, is Death Guard, which it is crazy to see Death Guard because we're used to seeing them at the bottom of these sorts of lists. So Death Guard, 11 wins, 7 losses. They had a 61% win rate. Now, there wasn't a Death Guard player that made a super deep run in this tournament, but one of the, I think it was the fourth bracket, was won by Tom Larochelle, who brought Death Guard.
Good job, Tom.
Yeah, shout out to Tom, and he actually played against another Death Guard player in the finals of his bracket. So Death Guard they did okay at this tournament. And when's the last time Death Guard did okay at a tournament? Do we have that data?
Uh,
No, that's weird.
what was the? I think it was an RTT that Janice was playing at Warp Charge Gaming store. Maybe
Yeah,
that might have been the last
yeah.
time
It was
I had seen.
pre TTS, before the COVID
Way
times.
before, yeah. That was the last time I saw Deathwatch make a deep run.
Yeah,
Um, but
Death Guard. Yeah,
I wasn't really that surprised with this packet. Them doing well just because of their ability to put out a lot of poxwalkers and still have some really deadly close combat models for fighting in arena and on the open board. Their shooting's pretty decent with their 9-inch plague spewer. They're a great faction for this packet. They're really flexible despite being slow, but they're all like toughness. Like the Marines are all toughness 5, and the Poxwalkers all of a 5 up, no matter what. So
yeah.
really durable, really easy for them to hold more and hold it for out the entire game.
Yeah, they have the bodies to cover the points, but they can also, like, they're durable, as you said, and just having two special weapons that can take out the highest priority targets on the other team reliably it's a big help to have access to all those things.
Yeah, it's really all you need.
Yeah, and I mean we talk about those 20-man hordes. Once upon a time, Death Guard was that team, right? They were one of those teams where they'd bring the one big list and they would just roll through the tournament. But here we didn't see that at all, to my understanding. Tom Larochelle, who had the highest demon, or I guess not demon, but Death Guard performance, I mean, in that final game, he brought the Blight Lord. So that's kind of another indicator, I guess, that Elites has made its mark on a lot of teams, not just the most successful teams. So, and all the way back in the first Nova, when that was the thing, it was going into that tournament, they were like the gatekeeper. They were like the big bad that everybody was afraid of. And now here we are in 2021, and we are clapping to see Death Guard in the highest win rate of Chaos. So times have changed a little bit for Kill Team.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to go back and track players too. As much as we're the whole point of this is that we're looking at factions. Like, we need to look at what players consistently perform well, and how much is this a meta thing in terms of when different factions fall in and out of popularity and success, or is it players who are, as they hop from faction to faction, kind of bring success with them? So um, that'll be interesting to look back at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Chaos overall at the Worldwide Open, 28 wins, 28 losses. They were 50-50. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think any of these lists that we saw from these factions were like major game changers or like meta definers. But I mean, you look back at our tier list before WWO, we really struggled to figure out which of the Chaos factions should be the highest in B tier. So
Yeah, right.
this is about as indicative of that as it gets, right? It's hard to see at 100 points in the Nova format a Chaos team really dominating or taking over, but they'll always kind of hold their own. So there were a few other Chaos teams that were not played here. Uh, Not many, but there are a couple. Let's start with GellerPox Infected. So I mean, I love the GellerPox. I'll bring him up whenever I can. GellerPox feel like they would have done pretty well, at least on the arena side of things here in WWO. What do you think?
Oh, on Arena, they would have absolutely stomped. They could have won every single game that was on Arena. I'm thoroughly convinced that faction is so good just because of their just like the units they have, man. Those flies,
The Ice Stinger swarms.
yeah, the eye stinger swarms. They
That's
have
literally this is literally the first time I've ever heard that phrase before.
yeah, right, right. But
I've never played against them. I don't think I've ever spectated a match with this faction.
Well,
yeah,
Sean,
Let's
you and I
do
need
my
to
due diligence, but yeah,
yeah, you and I need to sit down on TTS one of these days, and
yeah, sounds good.
I got to show you the magic that is GellerPox.
yeah, it's so easy for those models to score things like scout the field, engage on all fronts. You know, I guess not like their main guys, but like the most human looking
The
guys. It's like
mutants.
you kill them, and on a 5-up, they can inflict a mortal wound.
Sure.
It's just
Oh no,
they got
it's the
so
you're thinking of the sludge grubs. Once you kill them on a 6-up, it's a mortal wound. For the
right.
mutants, it's whenever they make it, they have a 5-up invuln, and every time they roll a 6 on an armor save, you take a mortal wound.
Yeah, no, and this is my thing. They just have so many like things that punish your opponent, and no one's played against Gellerpox. So it's like no one's going to be expecting any of this. You open the door on like an arena map and it's like great, now I got eye stinger swarms in my freaking deployment zone scoring that secondary, and I literally it's like, oh cool, now I need to commit resources to blocking hallways against a model that can fly. Literally impossible to do. It's like you're just running around like a chicken with your head cut off on arena against this faction. On open, they struggle a lot, just because they lack like serious range capabilities. They don't have the bodies that a lot of other factions have. And then with combined fire, they're big guys. They can go down pretty easy to say AdMech, Imperial Guard, factions like that.
Yeah. They definitely would have struggled on the open board big time. There is something to be said about the what are they called? The mutoid vermins or whatever they call them. Like so basically that's the ice stingers, the curse mites, and the sludge grubs. They're 5-point models, but they're leadership 8. Like what
Yeah,
is that?
like come
Why are they
on, man.
leadership 8?
Who
Like
wrote
imagine like a
this
gaunt or
faction,
something.
man?
Yeah. So they don't break very easy, needless to say. Um, the only thing that they're really missing is the is shooting capability. So on that super
Thank
open
God
board,
for that.
yeah, on that super open board, they would have had a tough time. Um, once you go into 125, though, I mean, there could be something to be said for them in Zenith, where you can get like 18, 19 bodies without dropping the big guy. Maybe something to do there. I don't know. Someone should check it out. Uh, yeah, and then the other Chaos faction that was not represented here at the World Wide Open is Servants of the Abyss, another kind of fringe faction that doesn't get a lot of play. I don't think they would have done that well, personally. Um, I don't have too much experience playing against Servants of the Abyss, but the few times I have played against them, they haven't really impressed me that much. They're just kind of a horde. Um, they do have a Psyker who blows himself up half the time.
Yep.
Uh,
It's like
they're
worse Heretic Astartes, right?
yeah, they are basically like a worse version of Heretic Astartes. Like the Negavolts can put out a lot of attacks, and they have like mortal wound potential. But at the end of the day, you'd rather have a Berserker. Um, they can get a bunch of cultists, but the gunners are overpriced. You can take the big Ogren guy, but he's like 50 points. He's like one of the most expensive guys in the game, and he's not even that good. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something there for Servants of the Abyss, just because there's a lot of different. They have a lot of different like niches of models, but it feels like they're just missing a few things to like tie it all together.
Yeah, I think that's a faction. That's an example of GW wants to let people play with their toys, which is good, but those models were not made for Kill Team. They were made for a different game and then said, hey, these models exist. We might as well make rules for them in Kill Team. But yeah, I don't see them adding more models to the faction because they would have to add them to another game first, and then find a way to balance them, which frankly isn't something they often put a lot of time into. So I don't see that happening. I think the people who have the models and are interested in them will play them and be happy because they get to play with them. And we don't need to worry ourselves with testing against them that much because they're not going to show up.
Yeah, they got some cool models like those. Like Once Upon a
They're very
Time,
cool, yeah.
it's weird. We say they won't balance them, but they did do one thing, and that was after Elliot Miller won Warhammer World with Servants. GW said, okay, you can only have 4 Negavolt cultists. And that is probably the beginning and the end of balance changes for Servants of the Abyss. Yeah, so their days of relevance probably up, but I don't think they're Kroot level. There's certainly something to be done with them. They're probably never going to be a tournament winner in any format, but if you love the faction, you can probably make them work. I
And
don't
I
think
think
they
you
would
just
have.
use the models in a Heretic Astartes, I think,
Yeah,
is
there
what
you
you
go.
do.
I don't think that Servants would have helped the win rate of the Chaos group here. GellerPox probably would have kept it 50-50 just because of half the games are on Arena, so theoretically they should win on those games. Although they could play against like Necrons or something, which is a terrible matchup.
All right, so that basically wraps it up for Chaos, right? That's about it. That's all of them.
I think that's it.
All right, cool. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Kill Team Metawatch. Special thank you to all of our patrons for, making all this stuff that we're putting out for you guys worth it. If you haven't subscribed already and you enjoy the content that we're putting out, please subscribe. Like 69% of you guys aren't subscribed. We'll see you all again in the next one.